So, as a game, you know, I almost did a review, like I almost wrote something up, but it's so difficult to put this game into like words. Well, I will say first of all, and this is just a factual statement and isn't meant to complain or slight in the game or whatever. This game is full of bugs. This game is full of bugs and QA problems and all kinds of like weird shit. I mean, chock full of all kinds of insane stuff. Good and bad, funny and not funny. I like a lot. You can glitch over walls. You can get out of bounds. You can go places you shouldn't go. You can sequence break the game. You can fight bosses that haven't spawned yet and force glitches on yourself. There's some sort of way to get invulnerability that I apparently keep triggering. This game is so full of bugs. It's ridiculous. Like, again, this isn't to complain about it, but this is just just a statement, right? It's ridiculous how many bugs there are. That aside, the gameplay, I think, even though it can be a little repetitive with the mobs, I think it's actually pretty fun. Personally, I don't mind the gameplay aspect. I think there's a good amount of customization. There's a good amount of builds that you can do, and there's a lot of different ways that you as a player can kind of like play the game your own way. Yeah. So as a base game, it is fine. There are some things that could be worked on. There are quite a lot of repetitive enemies. There's a lot of like the classic upgraded mob where it's like a boar, but it's a super boar. You know, it's a boar that has like a ranged attack now. It's a wolf. It is a wolf that it shoots out things. So it's a wolf, but it also has the other. That said, the later you get into the game, the more boss mechanics kind of start to overlap outside of the mobs that they are, and it's less about the appearance of the mob and more the mechanics that they kind of have. And there's a lot of mechanics. I think there's actually a pretty surprising amount of mechanics. Sometimes you will see these kind of repeat on the most ridiculous bosses. Like a troll has Ilfang's moveset on a third health bar if it's one of the trolls that actually gets to the third health bar, which is funny. And it's kind of interesting, and I guess it could be a little repetitive, right? But it actually, I don't think it's that bad, right? I can see it being a problem appearance-wise. Playing it, though, it's not that big of a deal, and maybe it's because I'm on Death Game. So all of my experience with the game, too, has been on Death Game, which kind of like makes me step back a little bit and I kind of approach it differently. You know how I usually play style games. I just blast through, you know? But I can't play this one like that because of Death Game. And so maybe that's made me kind of like respect the mechanics, even if they are a little repetitive, right? So mechanics are more of like a mechanism that they use to just kind of keep you on your toes, right? So with very repetitive mobs, you could say repetitive mechanics, but I think they're varied enough and random enough that it actually kind of keeps you on your toes quite a lot. The field is a very not open world. It's very like quest lobby based. It sucks. The field and quest system, I actually completely get what they were going for, and I think it could have been okay had they thought about some sort of expanding open world roaming section that expands the further you progress in the game. That's what I think it should have been. It kind of sucks. You'll go 2 inches, right? Like if we go over this wall over here, it'll rubber bend us back. Right, it says out of bounds. It'll teleport you back. I've had arcs on our other playthrough that they're right there. They're literally right there, but you can't. It's off the map, so you can't go to it. Like it's literally right there, like an inch in front of you to interact with, and you can't go because it's off the map. It's just like, okay, that's fucking dumb, right? Like that's actually just annoying. So not having some sort of like over expanding open world map that you can roam was pretty unfortunate. Which is pretty annoying. They did make the fall range a little bit better. It's still there. It's still just as annoying, but at least the range is a bit bigger. Boss mechanics are pretty crazy. They're up and down. Some are really simple and some are really tough. Some are really dumb. Some are really silly. There's all kinds of insane, like without giving all of them away, right? Like, there's all kinds of insane boss mechanics, which caught me off guard. Some of them were actually pretty decent raid mechanics. I mean, I gotta give them props. There were some interesting ones that were annoying, but also interesting at the same time. So like mechanic wise, I think that it wasn't so bad. Dungeons. are random in the mobs that spawn and the things that drop in them, but the layout of them is basically the same 4 or 5 dungeons, and you'll encounter most of them throughout the first like 5 hours of the game. They put a little color overlay on it and change the mobs that spawn in there and scale up the levels of the mobs. This one's a little tough. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but it could have been better. It could have been better and it should have been better, but it's not, again, it's not like a deal breaker for everything else. The game as a whole, the skeleton of the game is pretty good. Let me see, what else? There's a pretty good amount of like mods that you can put in your weapons to kind of like have your own build. So I mentioned the build stuff earlier. Every stat has like perks that you get every 10 levels. But sometimes attack percent, parry windows, dodge windows, sword skill damage, like all kinds of stuff like that. So you can make your own build. Death game mode is a really good addition to the game. I think it's amazing. I just don't think it should be locked behind New Game Plus, but I think we've already talked about that. So that's my thought. It's pretty scummy of them to do, but putting all that aside, the feature itself is pretty cool. I do like that feature. Let me see, what else? The story, in my opinion, kind of sucked. The story, I don't think it was that good. And I generally like SAO stories. I guess I'm a SAO fan, right? So like, if you put any sort of SAO story in front of me, I'll usually enjoy it. This one was such a 0 stage game that nothing happened. Okay, what was that? I've never seen that. Oh, I guess I thought it was falling. Yeah, like the story might as well have not existed. Like honestly, the story might as well have not existed in my. It was there. It served as a decent backdrop that has some cutscenes and stuff. Cool, great, but like looking back on the whole thing, bro, the story, you could have served the story like a Souls game story or like Sekiro. The story was weak. The story was very lacking. It's not that big of a deal because the characters that are involved make it kind of okay. At least some of them, the ones that I liked, made it like palpable, but overall, there was like next to no story in my opinion. It was such a setup, like 0 level game that I don't know. Now, the updates in the DLC later might change that. I have a funny feeling that everything that happened in the game was a setup for the DLC and the updates. And they're not the first dev I've seen actually do that. Like Trails did it, where they kind of put post-game true end stuff in an update a few weeks later. And I think there's a justifiable reason for that. For SAO's case being DLC, I can't justify it. But for a standard update doing it, I can justify it because I believe that the intent isn't so much to milk it as much as it is to make sure that people who get the game early and leak shit don't leak the entire game story and spoil everything out there, right? So if you saw the final boss of the game, it's one of those things where it's not a big deal because it's not very important to the story, if that makes sense. If something leaked or you know what I mean, if somebody had the game like 3 days early or whatever, posted up the final boss, yeah, it would suck, but it's not some crazy twist or spoiler or some insane thing that would ruin everything, right? And so I think that might be the idea with the DLC or the update later, where that kind of crazy stuff gives everybody else interested in the game a few months to get to that point, to catch up, to be ready for that. Anybody who actually has the intent to play the game, they've got several months to get to that point, you know? I think that's the idea behind it. So I'm gonna put the story, you know, I'm not gonna harp on it because it's not done yet, and I will be able to do the DLC in the update. So we'll kind of have to see about that when it happens. It sucks it's not here at the beginning, but I understand why. Game time length, barring in mind that we were on Death Game, I got over 100 hours out of this game easily already. On our clear run, I think we beat the story around like 35 or 40 hours. Now, because it was Death Game, I definitely took my time on a lot more stuff than I would ordinarily, right? So I did all the side quests. I got a lot of the side stuff done. There's still stuff I have to do. That save file's like 60 hours in. We still have it. It's still there. I just wanted to try this out first for a little bit. So, you know, it's, if you do enjoy the game, there's a pretty good amount of content depth. So Tri-Ace from Star Ocean was involved at some level of this game. And they're credited for sound direction. And it's interesting because I have a theory that it was more than just sound direction. This game actually has a lot of post-game. A solid, organized, comprehensive amount that I guess you could blast through in a few hours if you know what I mean, if you're super good or if not a death game or whatever. But you can kind of redo a lot of the dungeons with the harder boss, and there's extra gear that you're able to get. There's extra equipment that you could find. There's extra gear slots that you get. There's more levels that you get. You could scale up the dungeons to where you like. There's 10 different levels of the extra gear that you can get. There's like super rare weapons that you can get. So the end game is kind of interesting. It's not perfect. It's not amazing, but it really reminds me of like Star Ocean game, where you kind of are able to do some more stuff and some extra floors to play the game more if you enjoy it. So that's good. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's most of the categories I can kind of think of off the top of my head. Overall, I'd probably give it like a 6 or a 7. But I feel like I need to detract half a point for the amount of bugs. But like, I don't want to make this into all about the bugs, right? I made my stance very clear on that. This is like a fucking buggy disaster that needed a lot more QA. But that aside, the game itself, fundamentally, under the hood, I think is pretty enjoyable. I enjoyed it a lot. And for me, I think it says a lot to actually like lose runs pretty far in the death game a couple times and to be able to just kind of pick it up and keep going, because the gameplay of the game is actually just fun enough that it didn't detract from that. So yeah, I mean, all in all, story, you know, doing all the side quests and stuff took me about 40 hours. Death game took me about 100 hours, 12 runs. Still stuff to do. There's still things to like kind of find and experience. There's still other builds to do, to be honest. You know, there's a lot of other weapon types. You know, there's a lot of customization that there's available. You can level up your weapon skills. You can level them up post cap. You know, you get the extra gear slots. There's a decent amount of stuff. Yeah, I guess that's kind of like it for my mini review. How much is it? It's the same price as any normal game, right? So it's the same price as any other like double or triple A game that you're gonna find in the market, right? It's gonna be $70. If you go for like the extra stuff or whatever, I think it's 80 up to like 110, depending on the version that you get. It's the same, you know, same price as any other game. So, you know, some have had a real big problem with the price of the game, and like I get it, but at the same time, that's not a bone I'm gonna pick with SAO, right? That's an industry issue, and that's like a whole other can of worms. I'm not gonna fault them for pricing this at full price, because that's, you know, that's how games are, and you can't always wait for a sale, right? So I'm not defending them on it, but you know, there's plenty of games out there that are fucking dog shit that are 5-hour long games that are $70. You know, so yeah, it's a tough one, but it's an industry thing, you know, more so than a sale problem. Yeah, I mean, you can always wait for a sale. I mean, there might be sales at some point. Yeah, it really depends. It really depends. I would probably put this as one of my top 5, but I'd really have to like think about the other 4. But I can say for sure that I enjoy the game enough to kind of like find a reason to come back to it. At least right now. And with a lot of the other ones, even though I enjoyed the post game and played them for a long time, once it was done, it was kind of done. This one has a fun enough gameplay that I kind of like don't want it to be done, if that makes sense. I don't usually do like challenge runs and stuff like that these days, but I don't mind trying it out with this because the game is still fun when it's not being like buggy and annoying, you know? But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Only other thing I'll say is that movie that came with the game was, I want my 2 hours back. 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 That movie was fucking horrible. That movie was absolute dog shit. Like, I'm sorry, as a Sao fan, I will watch anything of Sao. I will read anything of Sao. I will play anything of Sao. I enjoy it 99.9% of the time. That movie was the worst movie or any Sao media I have ever seen in my life. That movie was horrible. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. But yeah, if you're on the fence, I mean, there's a demo out there. You can always wait for a sale. You know, it's definitely not game-wise, like gameplay-wise, it's definitely not the worst that they've done. It's, you know, I think, if I'm trying to think of what I could like compare it to in the past. I want to say maybe like Lost Song or Excel Ward versus Sao because it's very quest focused. And I believe Lost Song was too, but I think you could still at least go out into the open world in Lost. Dude, the open world shit, I don't know what they were thinking. I get not having it, but I think there should have been something available as you clear a floor or as you get further in the story that ever expands along with the areas that you have available in your quests. I think there's a lot of different ways that they could have somehow implemented some form of open world. It's pretty fucking insane that they did. The fact that you have to go and accept certain quests and do certain arcs or to do certain golden gates or to do certain things in the game, you have to like remember the quest and go back on that specific quest when it doesn't indicate it anywhere on the quest menu, like what's actually there, is horrible. I don't know what they were thinking with that one. The weapon, though, not changing weapons and not being able to level up at the resting use here, I get that. That's an intentional design choice to kind of like make you think about your loadout before you go out into the field. And that especially affects something like Death Game. I understand that. I don't think that's a big deal. But not having open world is a ridiculously big deal. I mean, like let me show you how big the fucking world actually gets to. That it doesn't actually let us get to the open world. Let me just swap over real quick. Because it's insane. It's actually insane. Like it's actually insane. It's actually insane. I don't know what the hell. I don't know what the hell they're expecting. I did 3 rolls for Rin. I updated Star Rail and I forgot to delete it. But I apparently only had 3 rolls on Star Rail and I didn't get Rin. I need to delete that game. I cannot believe they didn't give any rolls up. I cannot believe they didn't give any rolls up. Oh, another cool thing about the post game in this game is that they didn't just throw you back into the world as I hear have fun. They gave us a goal. They gave us a penultimate true final boss, which was really high level. It wasn't like that bad, but it was pretty high level. And it was interesting because a lot of games are just like, you know, here you go, you're back in the world, do whatever, go fight the final boss again, you know. But they gave us a whole bunch of other shit and a super boss to fight, and that's why I have a feeling they talked to Tri-Ace. Like, I just have a funny feeling that they talked to Tri-Ace because, like, they're the only other ones I could think of that actually have done endgame like that before. Having an actual, like, goal and a purpose to go get stronger. It wasn't just like, here you go, you're back in the world, just go get stronger, go level up, do whatever you want. They gave us a few cutscenes and actually had a whole kind of story reason. Yeah, I harped on the story, but it's there a little bit, right? Like, they gave us a little reason to actually go do something, which is kind of cool. I liked that. But yeah, so like this is the whole size of chapter 1. And these parts that are in light blue that are highlighted, that's like where we can go on this quest. Right? So all of these other areas, you can almost see the line breaks between the regions. These are all places and other quests that we can go to. It's a pretty big world. Like, it's actually a pretty big floor. And I actually respect that. I commend them on the size of these floors. The floor size is definitely not a problem, right? They're actually pretty big. We can talk about the other problems with the floor design, but overall, like, they're pretty large. So to only have us in this tiny little area per quest is like, what the fuck are they thinking? I don't get that choice. Look at the second floor. It's massive. There's so much shit, but you can only go to like 3 or 4 regions at a time if you're lucky. Sometimes those regions or zones like overlap with other quests. Most of the time you'll have like half of it will be like old and half of it's new. But yeah, like you can see how big the zones actually are, right? So why don't we have some form of like open world? I don't get, like, I don't understand that choice. I just don't like, sometimes I get the feeling they had certain aspects of the devs working on certain aspects that cared, and then some devs working on other aspects that just didn't even care. Because like, how do you have a world this big and then not have open world in some capacity? So like, there's golden gates that you can kind of go do, and there's certain things you can do on certain maps, and you can't even see what this map has on it. Okay, that's a dungeon. Let's see. Yo, what's up, Dragon Blaze? How's it going, man? So, okay, this is a good example. So we can see all the teleport points on the map, right? But we can't see what else is here. So there's certain things on the map that should show up. Chests, arcs, golden gates. I'll bring up the map. We'll go into this quest. I'll bring up the map and you can see all the stuff that's on there that we can't view from that quest screen. So not only do we not get open world, but we don't have any way to like see or remember what the hell is on each area. Right? So this place, we've got like seals. These are arcs. These are mini bosses. These are all chests to get. Right? There's all the stuff in the map. There's a golden gate over here. These are pretty important to get like rare synth effects to put on your weapon. But how am I supposed to remember as the player where all these golden gates are? Or where all the arcs that I haven't done are? Or where the chests that I haven't unlocked are? Am I seriously supposed to go back to town and select every single quest one by one through 9 pages, one at a time, and go back through every single zone? Like, who the fuck thought that was a good idea? That's horrible design, right? Like, so as good as it is, as good as the game is, and as much as I do enjoy it, it definitely has its fair share of issues. Oh, I was gonna show off like the size of that zone too in comparison to the rest of the floor. Let me go back in real quick. I'm gonna put on that dagger. Yeah, this works. Or I could do rapier. Let's do rapier. Yeah, I'll do rapier for the memes. I mean, there are some cool things. There are cool things, which is what surprises me. You can customize your gear a lot. There's actually glamour systems in the game. You could change the color of stuff, a lot of different parts of it, which I guess is kind of standard nowadays in a lot of games. You know, but for a game like this, it is actually kind of cool to have that option. You actually have to unlock it and find it, which is kind of neat, right? There is actually stuff that I kind of like find in the game. There's good and bad. There's really good and there's really bad, and then there's okay, and then there's not so great. And it's such a strange up and down thing. Some stuff hits really good, and then some stuff is just like massively doesn't hit. It's really weird. I mean, like overall, it still has not stopped me from enjoying the game, right? Like honestly, I'm not just glazing it. It actually is fun to play, but there's problems with it. There's problems with it. It needed more time. It needed more TLC. It needed more QA. It needed more bug testing. But the skeleton or the frame of a good game is there. I really honestly see a pretty decent game underneath it all. I honestly think there's a pretty solid, interesting base to build more off. So I hope they don't just like see all the negative stuff and just like dip and not even bother trying to do it again. I would like them to kind of like learn from this and expand and kind of like do better, because underneath it all, it's still pretty fun. So yeah, again, here you can see like the light blue areas. That's where we can access in this specific quest. So all of the rest of this area outside of, right, the top left there, or you know, where that light blue is, all of that is still this floor that we can't access on this quest. We have to go find another quest to find out which region to access through there, which is just weird. I don't know. It's just weird. I stress this, can't stress this enough. They should have had an open world that just is at the top of the list and ever expands as you unlock there's more zones through teleports. Like, all of the portions of the zone here, each region you have to get the teleport point, and then it uncovers that part of the map, right? So it should have been, as you get the teleports, your open world that you have access to would expand more and more, and you wouldn't have to go into like a quest or something to access a bunch of this stuff. I don't think that's rocket science. I don't know how they fucked that one so bad. I'll be honest, I don't know how they fucked that so bad. Might get the game and wondered about it. Well, I kind of just had like a mini talk about it. I guess I kind of like went into a bunch of details about it. I guess it's hard for me to put like a takeaway at the end of it. I mean, I would probably get, you know what, I would give it a 6.5. I said it a 6 or 7, and I wasn't memeing. I actually kind of like out of 10. I wasn't memeing. I kind of, if I wanted to meme, I guess I'd give it like a 6.7. But I feel like I'm gonna give it a 6.5 because there's a really good game underneath the hood and it can be improved a lot. But there's a lot of problems with it too. There's a pretty good amount of problems with it. I just wanted to kind of like a mini in-depth, like mini review, I guess I'd call it, on a lot of the aspects of it. Probably like a half hour ago in the VOD. I'd repeat it all, but I guess it was kind of like a lot, so. But yeah, I mean, it might be a sale kind of game for some. It might be kind of like a risky buy for some, you know. What I will say is the price tag, I don't think reflects anything on the game, one way or the other, because the price tag is a pretty like standard, normal thing these days, sadly, for better or for worse. Just like this capture card is just like shitty, for better or for worse. But yeah, it's yeah, I guess a bit of a mess is a good way to put it. It's just kind of in a tough spot. It needs some care, it needs some QA, it needs some bug testing. You know, it needs some love, for lack of a better term. But underneath all that, if you do enjoy the game or the fundamentals of the game and can deal with a couple repetitive mob types or dungeons, you know, it's I've played worse. We'll put it that way. I've played much worse. I've also played better, but I have played much worse.